Update number 2 for the crypto traders. Xeta Reality, XETA Reality. I covered Zeta Reality back in December on the podcast. So this would have been before the YouTube channel ever existed for the naysayers about the subscriber count. And Zeta Reality, to summarize what happened and why I did the coverage and how it became a thing. Zeta Reality was on the Binance Smart Chain. It still somewhat is, but was on the Binance Smart Chain. They did the initial airdrop of one token to 500,000 holders to get interest and get eyes on the project. They were one of the first to do that. Obviously, a lot of tokens are doing that since, but they were one of the first to do it. When I covered it, I said that this might be a brilliant marketing strategy if it's done correctly. None of the tokens arguably have done it correctly. They all just randomly drop into the wallet and they don't follow up like Web3 ENU, Web3 Doge, Crypto ENU, and etc. And so I looked at the project and I saw that there was something fundamentally here. It felt like they had a serious vision and they were trying to move it forward. I talked to the devs in, I believe it was Telescam at the time, and it seemed like they were serious and they wanted to push it forward. And they expressed appreciation, really nice people. They expressed appreciation for the coverage. I was the first to cover it. They said, we were serious. We want to make this work and we're trying to do some big things in the future. And we have lofty goals and visions. Fast forward now into, I think, April, end of April, and they were building out the blockchain. They were building out all these other tools and utilities to try to move the vision forward. And as people were watching the project, what would happen is at the time, it was getting pretty close to like a penny. I think it even hit a penny. So it was growing. And what people were doing was they would buy a little bit. They would kind of watch the movement. And when it would go or start to go down, so off the peak, they would sell off and kind of watch it, but they wouldn't completely liquidate because they saw something was there. So this is a normal trading strategy. Has anybody that I at least introduced to it, I assume would have said it's not for me at all. And so they would have just ignored the one token. But later, some people might have bought in off the coverage because I had quite a few people that looked at the audio. This is podcast only. So then later they released this and then they decided to rebrand it. So now it's no longer going to be Xeta Reality. It's going to be Cubics. I don't care for the name personally, but it is what it is. And usually a name rebrand is because of sentiment or reputation. I didn't see a harm in reputation, but I think some of the baggage of doing the airdrop might have harmed them a little bit. I think it was just being on the Binance Smart Chain was my opinion, but I still was watching, from a distance, Bette Midler. So now I just learned from social media because again, I don't frequent Telescam and most Americans don't. So I'm expecting that social media presence and everything else would follow along or that you have something else go on. They mentioned on Twitter that they had done an airdrop, quote, 1-to-1 of the Zeta Binance to the Cubics Binance. And then they were talking about doing the blockchain and everything else, and they were going to do a bridge and all this other stuff had been happening behind the scenes between when I covered it in December and now, including apparently some wallet and all this. So a lot has been created, a lot has been built, and a lot of upward mobility. The problem is because of what I argue is poor communication. You had a lot of people who got confused and assumed that Zeta Reality had rug pulled because what would happen is you look in the wallet and you see that the price stopped moving and then it goes to zero. There's no volume. There's no nothing. The volume value goes down to near net zero. And that usually means rug pull if you're not explaining to people outside your Telescam what's happening. Like their site never even told people this is what's going on, which is why I always say that you got to keep your site up to date and don't assume the crypto bubble. You have to assume people outside of it. So they say that they're doing the 1-to-1 drop. I confirmed because I was trying to dig in and figure out what now has happened because their site doesn't do it. Turns out via Twitter that they did not do the drop to anybody who had, quote, one token sitting in the wallet. I think what they were trying to do is trying to exclude anybody who was part of the initial airdrop that didn't buy up. The problem is you could have bought up and then sold back down, bought up and sold back down, bought up and sold back down. So if their criteria was just to find people that have one token, I think that's faulty. What I would have done is find people that had no other transaction other than the first transaction. That would then identify anybody who was just the initial and then never did anything for it. But in a perfect world, you just drop to everybody who has it anyway because there's no down risk. You get more holders that way. That's my opinion. Regardless, anybody who did buy into Zeta Reality, there has been this migration that's happening due to the rebrand. There's a new token called Cubics. It is on the Binance Smart Chain, as I understand. I added it to the wallet. I see it. But because, whatever, you have to add the address. You have to get the address. It's off Twitter. I don't have it. You have to get, I'm telling you, to me, it's a cluster, but you have to add that address to your wallet because it's not going to automatically show up. Then there's a whole different process later to get it onto their blockchain and do stuff that's still in flight. If any of them are listening, and I suspect they might, but because they did last time, I said they're nice people. If any of them are listening, I believe, and based on the responses on your own Twitter account, a lot of people were confused at what you did, and they treated it as a rug pull because it felt like people were being left behind. And a lot of people, some people said, and one guy even got a screenshot, he never got the tokens and said, need to add this to the wallet, and they don't see it, and da-da-da. Normally, you're still going to create a D app for people to manually migrate if they didn't get the auto airdrop. Maybe you just say you don't get the auto airdrop if you're one of the one, but if you still want to be on board, we'll give you the D app. You can manually migrate and still come on board. Like, it's circling that wagon. Now, in December, when I did the coverage, somebody had reached out from the Xeta Reality team. I forget who it was. It wasn't via Twitter. I'm pretty sure that came in via our contact form and said, we like what you did. Thank you for what you, actually, it might have been Reddit. Thank you for what you did. We like that you did the coverage. We appreciate it. We'd like to work with you. And I said, great. And then never heard back from them. And the people on the Reddit, the other supporters on the Reddit, and there's not a lot, but they said, yep, this is great. This is awesome. We think it's going to go somewhere. I had people responding on Twitter saying, we think it's going to go somewhere. Like, I got to make sure you understand, when you have things done right, coverage done right, neutral coverage that says, this is what I see it straight off the scratch. It's not a shill, and we're trying to help you with the pros and the cons and the things that we see that are not working. That's the most valuable feedback that you can get. And when you drop the ball and don't go all the way with it to the finish line, that's what happens. You have people who are left behind and confused because you're thinking crypto bubble. There's an opportunity to course correct. The step one is, I can help you. If you want, reach out, cryptotalkradio.net. Let's move it forward, and I'm happy to help you. And the way I help is to communicate. That means I'm going to communicate the pros and the cons. And I expect that with the cons, you are going to make actions to correct them so that we can move it forward. It's not going to be a shill. It never will be. It is, I will call out what I see, and I'll also be your voice. When you're trying to change something, you're going to move something, you're about to do something, you're planning to do something, I will communicate it to everybody else so they know, so that they're not left behind. Because sentiment, as I've said repeatedly, is the most important, valuable tool that you have. And the moment you lose it, it's hard to get it back. The strategy for the airdrop up front created a negative sentiment because people didn't understand it. And I said we should have communicated up front that we were going to do it and then collect addresses via Discord, which you have, so that we could tell people this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, this is where we're going. And then you position and strategically airdrop tokens to those people, and now you've created brand loyalty. With the brand loyalty, then we can parlay that into the brand rebrand that you're doing now. Because you just did a random airdrop, you have people that assumed it's a scam, and either they ignored the coin or token, or they sold it, right? Well, then you now do this rebrand, and you could have taken everybody who kept that token and said, hey, that's another holder for us, and then move it forward and create the brand loyalty later. There was like 6 different ways to slice and dice it. Ultimately, we can course correct now. If you're game and you're willing, I can help you. But for anybody else, there are some actions you need to take if you want to buy in to where Xeta Reality, now to be known as Cubix, is going. If you want to get in on the train, there's some actions you need to take. Unfortunately, their site, the links are not up to speed like I like, and they force you to telescan, which is another issue I have with them, is they need to have their site up to date. It's not up to date. So we got a lot of work to do. Xeta Reality folks, Cubix folks, I don't know what I want to call you now. If you want the help and you want the smoke, I can help you, because the things that you're struggling with right now that are hurting investor sentiment are easy to fix. They have to do with communication. Communication to your web portal. Your web portal needs to be updated. It is critical that you do. Your top link that says learn more about your new presence doesn't work. As an example, your contact link doesn't work. It just takes you down to a section of the page. These are easy fix things. Ideally, you would create more of a presence for people to get questions answered. Ideally, you would create a D app for anybody to migrate their tokens to the new Cubix, so nobody's getting left behind. Let's work together. I can help you. In a big picture, I'm going to recommend that you get on platforms to help support what we're doing. If you can, if you're not all the way over in the blockchain and you're still trying to get people across, consider something like Evermigrate to help people get over to support the future state, because perhaps you can find some of those holdouts, not holders, holdouts, and they should join you on the journey. Why wouldn't you want that? It gives you a head start on the new world. That's my thoughts. Xeta Reality, if you're in it, you got some steps to do. If you want, you're going to need to go to their telescam. Go to xetareality.com. The telescam's linked at the bottom, unfortunately, and find their pinned information. And hopefully they reach out to me and I can tell them what they need to change on their website to put all that information on their site so that people don't have to go to telescam, because legitimate businesses should not force people to telescam, in my opinion.